Hello and welcome to our mayoral forum presented by Loudlight, Wichita Beacon, League of Women Voters, and Student Engagement Advocacy and Leadership, as well as Shoppers Vote Coalition. My name is Sophie Martins. I'm the Student Body Vice President for the 6th session for this year. This is Neil Allen, my favorite political science professor, and he's going to get us some of the rules.
Thank you, Sophie. So I'm Neil Allen. I'm a professor of political science here at Wichita State University. And thank you all for coming, and also thank you to Loudlight for helping to organize the event. And also Loudlight is live streaming on Zoom to anyone out there in the world who's interested in either Wichita or public affairs or just a fun hour of debate that we'll have today. I'm going to talk a little bit about the rules which have been agreed to by both candidates, and that also that we'll ask everybody in the room to follow. We will have opening statements each 90 seconds. The candidates agreed that they'll alternate from where they were the last time that they were doing their interminable roadshow of joint events. Candidate Wu will start the opening statement. And then candidate Whipple will have the first of the closing statements, would also be 90 seconds. I and Sophie and Jay, who you'll meet in a minute, will be asking questions of the candidates. The first set of questions are those that have been submitted on the website of the Wichita Beacon, which I'd like to thank is one of our other sponsors, which is a news and opinion source for the Wichita community. And also we will be taking questions from the audience. There are note cards available out front. Also, folks from the Beacon will have note cards as well. If anybody has a question, write it on a note card and then wave it in the air. Somebody from the Beacon will pick it up and bring it up to us, and we'll see if we can get it in to ask the candidates. Also, please keep any cheering or booing or any particular statements you have to make or signs you have to wave. Save that until the end, but at the end of our time today, both candidates will be available out in the lobby to give you copious amounts of campaign merchandise and also to talk to you about anything that you are interested in. I also want to note here, being the political science professor in the room, who these candidates are and what they're running for. They're running for the mayor of Wichita, Kansas. That means that the mayor is the mayor of the city of Wichita, and so only in the city limits of Wichita, so not the county commission and not the mayor of any other city or municipality. These two candidates finished first and second in the first round, which was a multi-candidate affair. That the office of Wichita mayor is nonpartisan. So if you were a registered voter in Wichita and registered by yesterday, the deadline to register, you will be able to vote on election day, November the 7th. And what you'll have is available to you for mayor is Lily Wu or Brandon Whipple. And also note that how this fits into the city government. Wichita has a city council, of which there are 7 members that set policy for the city. There are 6 elected members in districts, and then there's the mayor that has 1 vote out of 7 votes, and there are other city council districts that are on the ballot this year. And also note, both candidates here, we are proud to say, are Wichita State University alums, and also have ongoing connections to Wichita State University. And this being the biggest small town in the country, have connections to me as both with Mayor Whipple having worked with our department and with interns, and because I say yes, Lily Wu in her previous work as a journalist has interviewed me a few times. But it's Wichita, so we all know each other. And so I will, and then one last note before I move on to Jay and then questions. If there is anyone in the audience who could benefit from Spanish interpretation, then we have a Spanish interpreter from Spanish ad hoc services on site, And if so, you can raise your hand and we can direct it to that particular person. So now on to Jay.
Hi. Is it? Okay. And then lastly, hi, I am Jay Thompson. I chair the Government Oversight Committee for our student government, and I'm also part of the Shoppers Vote Coalition.
Okay, so thank you, and also thank you to the League of Women Voters, and Carol Neal from the League of Women Voters has, and other folks from the League of Women Voters are going to be our timekeepers. They have a 30-second warning and a stop sign, and so we will enforce that upon candidates. And so let us start, and Lily Wu, please, your 90 seconds begin.
Thank you very much. Thinker, doer, mover, shocker. That was the question posed to me when I competed on this campus for a Gore Scholarship 20 years ago. I'm a doer and a true woo shocker. Thank you to my alma mater for the opportunity to share my story and my vision today. 30 years ago, I came to Wichita as an 8-year-old immigrant from Guatemala. I learned English by watching television, which inspired my career. I'm a proud product of Wichita Public Schools, graduating from Wichita East High and the International Baccalaureate program. I became the first in my family to attend college and graduated with 2 degrees in International Business and Integrated Marketing Communication. 12 years ago, I began my dream career in journalism, serving cake news as a crime beat reporter and a local government reporter. Then I became the 4 o'clock anchor and multimedia journalist for KWCH Channel 12 3 years ago. My career led me to all parts of Wichita where I have been listening to you. You're tired of increasing crime, partisan bickering, and unethical behavior. So on the 30th anniversary of coming to America, I announced my candidacy to become the next mayor of Wichita. My vision for Wichita is rooted from listening to all of you. It has 4 pillars that I'm committed to: ensuring public safety, strengthening our economy, restoring trust in City Hall, and building a united community.
All right, Wichita, thank you so much for being here today. I know there's a ton of other places you could be, but it's so good to see folks here on campus who are willing to get engaged in this election cycle. My name is Brandon Whipple, and it's been an honor to serve as the mayor of Wichita for the past about 4 years. And before then, I actually served in the Kansas legislature for 7 years. And before then, I actually served in our Wichita State Student Government Association. So raise your hand if you're a student government. Thank you all for not only being leaders on campus, but also really training that next generation, I think, of leaders, both at the local level and at the state level. Folks who know me know that I moved here about 20 years ago as part of an AmeriCorps mission. I worked with at-risk students over at South High School, and I fell in love with this community. One of the reasons why I fell in love with this community is it had so much more opportunities than where I was from in New Hampshire. Some of those opportunities were actually ones I discovered about myself right here on this campus. In Wichita State, for many of us, is that gateway towards the Wichita community, where we might come here for school, but we might stay here because, like me, you might fall in love with our community. So my goal is to listen to your questions and to make sure that as we move forward, Wichita becomes a place we can lay down roots, where you can actually stay and just be able to reach your calling right here in our city, not have to move somewhere else after graduating. So again, I look forward to the questions, and I hope that this is a productive debate for the people watching.
Awesome. So our first question of the evening is, what is your single top priority, and what could you do as a mayor with just a single vote on the council to do about it?
And candidate Wu, if you could go ahead and answer first.
Well, my top priority is to ensure public safety. That includes police, fire, and infrastructure. But currently, the police department faces a crisis. They have a recruitment and a retention crisis. And the first thing that we must do is restore the relationship between the mayor's office and the police department. That has been fractured based off of an adversarial relationship that has been created at the mayor's office. I stand behind our law enforcement and our community. Both need relationship building from the mayor's office. And I do not want to be the police chief. I want to be supportive of Joe Sullivan, our police chief. So in order for us to ensure public safety, we need to lower crime and focus on crime prevention. Two key areas that our officers need to focus on. But right now, the police department faces 100 police vacancies, and 100 more police officers are eligible for retirement. In addition to, more than 400 officers that have been surveyed show that 70% of them have looked at another career in the last 12 months. That is a problem. So we have to get back to ensuring public safety in our community, make sure that crime goes down, not up, how it has these last 4 years. Because I believe when a community is healthy and safety, it is thriving.
Thank you. And Brandon Whipple?
All right, thanks for the question. I also agree that public safety is one of our top issues. Fully funding our police, our fire, and our public works to a level that they've never seen before on my watch is frankly one of my greatest accomplishments. But it's not just policing, it's also ensuring that we go beyond the basics. And I think this answer separates my platform from my opponent's platform nicely, where in addition to public safety, we can't really talk about public safety unless we're willing to also talk about mental health. Unless we're willing to also talk about the homelessness situation we have in our city. So one of the things that I want to do as top priorities, make sure that Wichita becomes that community, that model community that truly takes on a mental health crisis, that truly takes on the homelessness crisis, and that we don't just mask the problem or manage the problem, we actually solve the problem. So one of my top priorities is creating the MAC, the Multiple Agency Center, where we can have folks from all different levels of government and also our nonprofits set up a one-stop shop for those who are suffering. We're talking about folks who are suffering with addiction. We're talking about the opioid crisis. I don't think Wichita needs to hide their head in the sand when it comes to these crises that are coming throughout our city. So my goal is to continue. We're making us the safest city we can be, but also I want to go beyond just basics and make sure that we're also addressing the problems that the community has brought to our attention and want us to address.
Thank you. And our next question is what, if any, plans do you have to make our city more environmentally sustainable? Please speak to efforts about recycling single-use plastic bags, making Wichita a bike/walk-friendly city, and preserving or expanding the tree canopy, starting with Brandon Whipple.
All right, sorry to write down the question. So it's a really important question because frankly, Wichita, we're in a transformational moment right now. Are we going to be a small town, or are we going to be a rising top 50 city that's attracting global talent? And to do that, we actually have to take into account sustainability as not only the right thing to do that helps us when it comes to the environment, but also the right thing to do values-wise for that next generation. I'm proud to say that on my watch, we actually created a sustainability board where we brought people who are experts, people who are passionate about this issue into Wichita. We empowered them not just with authority to present policy to us, but also with over $100,000 budget. Because of this, we're able to expand our tree canopy. We're able to expand our rebates for water rebate program. So if you were to buy an appliance that helps us save water, then we will be able to give you some money back. In addition, we're converting our gas guzzling diesel bus fleet into clean energy battery operated fleets. And we're going to also implement even more of our electric car infrastructure charging stations in our multimodal station. Again, Wichita, we got to go beyond the basics. We got to be thinking big. We're a global city, and on my watch, we got to continue down the path to making sure that we're also a sustainable city.
As a Wichita Public School student, I still remember the lessons of the 3 R's: reduce, reuse, recycle. As a matter of fact, I'm wearing a hand-me-down jacket right now because I believe in making sure that we are reusing and repurposing a lot of our items. I think that it takes personal responsibility. Right now is Walktober, which is an encouragement to people to walk around our community and get that exercise. So there are multiple ways that we can be environmentally friendly and also healthy and conscious of our community. I believe that as a local government, our focus needs to get back to some basics. As I mentioned earlier, public safety is the #1 priority that I'm hearing from community members, but not just from my hearing of members of our community, but a 2022 community survey showed that more than 80% of people want to focus on public safety. So we need to get back to some basics. I'm really proud to say that when we are focusing on the core services of local government, other things will also fall into place. But we have to correct the public safety issue in our community, which over the last 4 years has continued to deteriorate. We are seeing increasing crime, and just in July, we saw one of the deadliest months. So we have to get back to lowering crime in our community and get back to some priorities that Wichitans care about.
Thank you. And also, I'll note for the audience that while we are not having rebuttals, that each candidate can, if they so desire, speak on a previous question during their allotted 90 seconds for the next question. And so my first question that I'd like to ask, coming from a Wichita Beacon reader, is what is your position on the legalization and or decriminalization of the substance known as cannabis or marijuana? And specifically, what is your position on the city's current decriminalization policy? And to be even more specific, if you are elected mayor and there are 3 votes to either expand or reduce the penalties for marijuana possession, which have been radically reduced by the city government, if there are 3 other votes, would you either reverse that policy or change it in any way? And so first to Lily Wu.
Well, the policy has already been voted on, and we need to move on. Right now, what we need to focus on is priorities. When I hear from our Wichitans, they tell me what they're most concerned about is the increasing response times that they're seeing when they call 911. We need to reduce that, and over the last 4 years, it's been increasing. So when you call 911, that is the focus that people want us to prioritize. They want to make sure that the police department is able to answer those calls. So when it comes to issues like marijuana and other low-level crimes, we need to, again, focus our efforts back on police department shortages that we have right now, and not on issues that continue to further divide our community. I also believe that it's important for our local elected officials to focus on the things that local government has control over. And I believe that that is in regards to public safety and growing this economy. So we need to get back to the basics of local government and get back to issues that actually move our community forward, not keep looking in the rearview mirror.
So I'm not afraid to answer the question, and I think that this shows a contrast between myself and my opponent, that this is a serious issue, particularly when it comes to law enforcement and when it comes to how laws are implemented. We did a deep dive into the data on my watch, and we found out that the $50 ticket that people could if you get caught with marijuana, you pay a $50 ticket, would actually give them a drug conviction on their record. So you had people who are coming in, mostly black and brown young people, who paid $50 because they wanted to get out of court instead of paying $500 or $1,000 to go through the process of a diversion. We actually incentivized at the city level a way that actually caused these young people to ruin their future. So of course on my watch, when you follow the data and you follow the will of the people, we went and deleted it from our city code. Wichita is the first city that was able to fully decriminalize THC and marijuana because our cops have better things to do than harassing grandma who's using a vape pen because she's suffering from pains from cancer. Our cops have better things to do than to be kicking down the door of a CBD shop because there's a D8 or D9 or whatever the new stuff is that people utilize when they are trying to go to sleep at night. So if we really want to focus on crime, we've got to focus on crime prevention, we got to focus on our resources, and again, I'm not afraid to say it. I know what we did because what we did was follow the will of the public to make sure we're focusing on real crimes and not just harassing kids or making those kids have less economic opportunity in the future because of bad policy.
Thank you. Our next question is, what will you do to attract and maintain young professionals and talent to live in Wichita? Starting with Brandon Nicole.
So one of the things we have to do when it comes to attracting and retaining young talent is to create the type of Wichita in which young people want to grow and thrive in. Sadly, before this question, before we have two millennials running, by the way, which I'm really proud of. The folks who are older than us, the older generation, they really focused on bars. They really focused on nightlife. They really, I think, had the wrong perspective of what the next generation is looking for. People are looking for affordability. They're looking for opportunity. They're looking for diversification in the economy, which is something that I've been able to do over the last 4 years. And as we continue to grow, not only do we have to focus on public safety, fire, police, and infrastructure, we got to focus on opportunity. And more important, we got to focus on closing the opportunity gap. Because there are too many young people who graduate high school, who graduate college, and they, although we have jobs, although right now we're leading the state in economic growth and opportunity for the first time in decades, some of those folks don't know those opportunities are also for them. So what we have to do is we have to invest in young people. We have to invest in these programs. We got to make sure that we're getting the word out, and we got to make sure that we're also listening to you and that feedback of what type of city do you want? What type of city do you want here when you get off campus and you start going out into the other parts of our city? And to do that, you got to have someone who understands policy. You got to have someone who's been doing this, who has experience doing this. And I think that my track record speaks for itself when it comes to getting things done on behalf of that next generation. And decriminalizing marijuana and THC products is part of that. Again, that came from that next generation, came and told us they wanted that, so we made sure we followed those values.
As a young professional who chose to stay in Wichita, I chose this community because of its people, its teachers, and its mentors. I believe here in our community, you're just one phone call away from someone that can help you get to your goal. Now, our community needs to be able to connect the dots for people regarding job opportunities. My second pillar is about strengthening our economy. One of the things that I am really grateful for is that when I was at KWCH, I started a series called Building You that connected job seekers with job opportunities. Oftentimes, people don't know that these job opportunities exist. So I want greater collaboration between government, education, and industry, emphasizing to high school students as they're graduating that there are opportunities in 3 different areas that are equally important: at a 4-year university, at a technical or trade school, and also getting into the workforce right away. There are jobs that pay more than $20 an hour for high school graduating seniors, and we need to emphasize those opportunities equally. And I believe when you share what those job opportunities and economic opportunities are, our community will continue to retain the young talent, but also attract young talent to come to Wichita. Because at the end of the day, you want to make sure that you're able to afford living in Wichita. And over the last 4 years, what we've seen is affordability continue to decrease. So we need to correct that so Wichita stays an affordable city.
Thank you. Both of you just mentioned about affordability within Wichita. What can or should the city do to ensure affordable housing is available to young adults looking to rent or buy their first home? Starting with Lily Wu.
I always think that this question requires a little bit of more explanation. Housing affordability and affordable housing. Affordable housing is subsidized housing. Housing affordability is affordability at all levels. Right now, what we have is a supply and demand issue. We don't have enough supply of various opportunities and diverse options for housing. So we need to encourage development of housing at all multiple levels, from townhouses to multi-complex buildings. We need to make sure that we're able to help individuals at various stages in life as they're looking at housing. People like my parents who live in a bi-leveled home and have multiple stairs, this is not a great home for someone who's about to turn 70 years old. So we need to continue having more housing options at all levels so that my parents can then graduate to a home that is a 1 level and is able to give that house into the market so that a young family can then have that home to raise their children. So I believe that we need to have more housing affordability at all multiple levels so that you young people can have those options, whether it's to rent or to own.
Brandon.
All right, I'm gonna wait till I get called on each time, by the way. So, I mean, really good question. Again, this question is a great way to tell the difference between my opponent and I on our platforms. I think that we have to go beyond just encouraging developers to develop. And on my watch, we've been able to not only get into our Housing First programs and take a deep dive into our vouchers, but also we've created better relationships with our landlords to ensure that if you are someone who actually gets a voucher, let's say you are a homeless veteran and you get a voucher in hand, we can actually get you connected to housing. So we can get you into a place that you need to be in. Now, as we move forward, the reality is, yeah, growing pains of a booming economy and more population growth that we've seen over the last 4 years has caused a bit of a housing shortage. We're about 20 to 40,000 units shy of where we need to be as a city, and we're coming up with creative methods by taking a page off economic development policy, where we will give you tax breaks if you're building a business or building onto your business. There is a play there where we can actually take that type of policy and apply it to close that gap so that affordable housing in the core, in places that developers might not think is going to give a big bang for the buck, if we can incentivize some of those programs, so we can get those houses built. And also, we can't forget about the stock we currently have. It costs us $10,000 to knock down a house and to clear it. Why aren't we doing $5,000 grants into the community for the elderly folks who can't just climb up on the roof and fix their shingles? Why don't we give grants so that they can actually fix their houses and they can stay in their homes and we don't have to lose another house? And in my plan, we got to go beyond the basics and make sure that we're actually addressing the problem, and that's what my plan will do.
Okay, thank you. And Brandon Whipple, I gave you 3 more seconds, so let's all make sure to hit our time as much as we can. We've now received some questions from the audience of students and community members, and I'm going to pose one of them. The question is, what will you do to make Wichita a safe haven for minority groups? And it specifically lists LGBTQ individuals and pro-choice individuals, which pro-choice for this purposes should be defined as those who believe that there is a right to pursue an abortion by a woman, and that is either their choice themselves or that is their political decision as a citizen. And I would ask that the candidates specifically address their position on the city's human rights, or sorry, I forget the right exact term, but the city's ordinance about this matter that passed a couple of years ago, and also could address what the city of Wichita should specifically do or not do involving the provision of abortion care. And so, since Brandon Whipple answered last, he shall answer first on this particular question.
All right, well, I'm very proud of our record over the last few years to diversify our city. When you jump into the data back before I ran for mayor, we were losing young people as our top export. And when you dived into that a little deeper, the majority of the people who were leaving Wichita for communities that they thought had more opportunity were people of color and women. So when I became mayor, I wanted to make sure that we were actually doing policy from that viewpoint. And I'm proud to say that we created a board on diversity, inclusion, and civil rights that is now a permanent board at the city level to help us advise us to make sure that we are being more inclusive, not just in our practices, but also in our values. That led us to a non-discrimination ordinance that finally passed, and it's the strongest non-discrimination ordinance in the entire state of Kansas to let the world know that Wichita is open for business for everyone. And just this last week, just yesterday, we actually voted to amend that ordinance so it included what's called the Crown Amendment, which means that we are going to make sure that you are not discriminated against if you wear your hair natural, or if you have cultural hairstyles. You would not be discriminated against. So we actually bettered it on my watch, and we will continue to better it. Oh, and by the way, when it comes to non-discrimination, for the second time in a row, Wichita has scored a perfect 100 by the Human Rights Campaign. When I was first elected mayor, we were in the 50s. Right now, we're the most inclusive city in the entirety of the state, next to Lawrence. But and we're going to go ahead and keep moving forward with that because Wichita is big enough for everyone, and it can't be all for Wichita, enough for all of Wichita. I'll take back that 3 seconds.
Thank you very much for that question. First and foremost, let me be very clear. I know I have to state the obvious, but I'm an Asian American immigrant woman standing before you today who has faced discrimination. So I can tell you that I do not stand for discrimination, and I am supportive of non-discrimination ordinances that protect all individuals. Because I believe that my parents came to this country for the belief that in America, you are valued as an individual, and we need to respect one another. And so, as someone who will govern with respect, civility, honesty, and integrity, that will be my pillars on leading this community. Discrimination has no place in our community, and I know because as a community that welcomed a young immigrant family 30 years ago, this community took us under their wing, and we appreciate all the opportunities you all have provided my family, my brother, and I. So this gratitude that I have is because I am grateful to all Wichitans who helped raise me. And I'm grateful, and so now what I have been doing is being called to serve. And I'm serving with the utmost integrity, and I will make sure that discrimination does not have a place in Wichita, Kansas.
Thank you. Our next question is, how do you plan to address city transportation and bus accessibility? Starting with Lily.
When I think of transit, I really believe that it is an asset for not just our community, but it's a regional asset. In addition to, I believe that transit needs to be a workforce asset. One thing that I have been grateful to have these last few months is connecting with businesses in our community, understanding some of their needs. What I'm hearing is that some of their employees have difficulty getting to work. So transit is an issue. The problem is transit right now is just focused on Wichita. So we need to think of transit in a more regional sense, which requires us to be more collaborative and partner with those in the county, as well as state and federal, to see if we can have dollars coming down to Wichita to make it more of a regional asset. With about 1 million riders that ride our City of Wichita buses in the last year, we need to make sure that transit continues to be an asset, but it needs to be thought of more comprehensively so that it can be not just a regional, but also a workforce asset in our community.
So I'm not allowed to rebuttal, so I'm just going to take a quick second that when it comes to non-discrimination ordinance, my opponent went on a right-wing talk show and said it was divisive, that we were actually going to protect the rights of everyone here in Wichita. That's the difference between us. I think it's divisive to let the civil rights and civil liberties of people fall through the cracks. So I want to make sure that that difference is pointed out. When it comes to transit, we got a lot to do when it comes to transit. In my second term, I want to finally fix public transportation. But we got to look at it as more than just an economic vehicle. We can't just turn this plan over to the biggest business folks so we can hammer out what they want to see. We got to turn it over to the people and say, well, what do you need? In doing that, we need a blended approach. I'm very glad that we are now creating a new multimodal station, which is going to not only be about buses, but about parking. It's going to connect to our bike lanes. It's going to also connect to our electric scooters. And we got to be thinking outside the box with more type of customized Uber style, but they're done by our transit department type transportation for our elderly folks who are living in their communities. And it's very important that we also think about quality of life, because too many times when we talk about the subject, people say, well, they gotta get to work, or they gotta get to the doctors, or they gotta get to groceries. People actually do more than just that in a thriving community. And we gotta make sure that the bus system isn't just a safety net system, it's one that people can actually enjoy and utilize and have diverse options to getting to and from work. And if we want to attract and retain that next generation, you all, we gotta have a robust transportation system, or else you might leave us for a system that's even better. Thanks.
And Brandon Whipple, that's a warning. Please stay to the time like your opponent has been sticking to our time. Our time restrictions of 90 seconds.
Thank you, Neil. Next, we're going to go with another audience question. With homelessness increasing, mostly in the downtown area, what are your plans about it? Starting with Brandon Whipple.
All right, again, one of the things that I think makes me different than my opponents, I think government, we actually have a role in solving this crisis. For too long, we have just pushed it off to the nonprofit sector and said, hey, do what you can with what you have. The reality is these are Wichitans. These are people that we represent just as much as I represent you all. And we are too good of a city to allow people to freeze to death on the streets. We're too good of a city to allow veterans who come back and are faced with mental health issues, who once adorned a uniform to protect our roads, to now sleep under our bridges. We're too good of a city for that. And that's why I have a $9.5 million plan to reallocate our funds that come in from the federal government to create the MAC, the multi-agency campus, so that we have a one-stop shop. It is a best practice, and it is going to make us actually get to what's called functional zero, which means we start making points, not by serving cups of coffee or food or cots where people can sleep. That's not scoring a point, that's managing the problem. Instead, we have to change our paradigm and score points by getting people actually housed. You want to help homelessness, you got to actually attack the variables that cause homelessness, and you got to get people into housing. And once we do that, we're going to be much better off. There you go, Neil.
There are multiple causes to homelessness in our community, especially those who face it due to mental illness or substance use problems. These two require care and it require compassion from our community. But it also requires that we think about sheltering, temporary sheltering, that then transitions into housing that has supportive services. So I am glad that the city of Wichita and the county are thinking about this multi-agency center that will bring wraparound services to our community members. The problem though is, for too long, actually the last 4 years, homelessness has continued to increase. 4 years ago, when the mayor took office, that number was just under 600. The point in time that was counted this year, it showed a homeless number of 702 individuals, which we also know does not combine the folks that are also couch surfing. So we have seen an increase in homelessness during this leadership. So what we need is new leadership that is more collaborative, trying to bring together nonprofit, the government sector, as well as industry to help with funding some of these resources that will help our homeless population. But at the end of the day, it will require new leadership that is committed to be at the table. Open meetings have been had that the mayor has not been attending.
You gonna call it, Neil?
Okay, thank you. And so next, I'm going to go with the question that came from the audience, and note that we are still accepting and encouraging audience questions. So if there's another question that's occurred to you, please put it on note card, raise your hand. And also, if there's any question that the candidates have either not answered in a way that is satisfactory to you, or you would like to hear further clarification, that is encouraged by the panel as well. So this question says, how can college students do advocacy work under you if and when you get elected to being mayor? And also, I want to clarify as well that Wichita State University does not endorse candidates, we do not endorse parties, but we do endorse democracy and support the work of our students in advocating for their own particular positions. And also, I would also raise that this is related to a previous question about inclusivity, and that did ask for the candidates' positions personally on issues of marijuana policy and LGBTQ rights. And this could also be, and since those are issues that our students do advocate about from various positions, this could be an opportunity for you to answer that part of the previous question as well. And we start with my friend Sophie Martins to remind me with Lily Wu.
Let me start off by really engaging our community to remind you all that this is a nonpartisan race. As much as labels have been thrown, such as right or left, this is a nonpartisan race. And it's supposed to get us back to what local government is supposed to be good at. Local government should be focusing on public safety, not just police, not just fire, but also your streets and your infrastructure like water and sewer. So we have to make sure that local government gets back to some basics. When I have young women tell me that they don't feel safe walking, whether downtown or across campus when it's dark at night, we have an issue. So we have to get back to some basics. So when you're asking about how college students can be better advocates and work with local government, I first and foremost encourage you all to be part of the process. You have an opportunity to be here today, and I thank you for that. But I also want you to start getting engaged in district advisory boards, in neighborhood associations, in your local school organizations, where you can advocate for the issues that you care most about. I am here to listen, and I'm here to serve. And that is the role of being a mayor, especially one who's supposed to be nonpartisan. So take away the labels and look for someone who you believe is a good leader and has good character.
Brandon.
It's tough to be lectured about partisanship by someone whose campaign is completely run by Americans for Prosperity, which is a DC-based dark money group that is dedicated to ultra-conservatism. But to the question about providing more opportunities, I'm proud to say that one of the things that we've been able to do in my office is go beyond just the basics of listening and actually bringing students in and having them intern with us. When I was in the Kansas legislature, we had interns who were able to actually learn about the process. Sadly, though, they had to move all the way to Topeka or move to Washington, D.C., which means that there was a gap in privilege. Folks who wanted to be involved in government, wanted to learn how to do public policy, wanted to learn maybe to find a career in serving their community, they were left out. So one of the first things I did as mayor is make sure that I talked with Wichita State University, that I talked to the other universities and offered an internship program. Is there a way that we can bring people in, get them internship credit, and actually learn firsthand how we solve problems at the local level? And I'm proud to be the first mayor to be able to do that. And every semester or so, we usually get people who are interested who come in, and luckily, in some of these cases, we get people who go on and they change the trajectory of their career so they can actually be in the service sector. And I think that's amazing. It's because they were exposed to it. I'm passing that forward because I was exposed to that back when I was in student government, where we got to go to Topeka and interact with lawmakers. I want to make sure that those folks who can't afford to move to Topeka have that same opportunity here in Wichita.
Okay, our next question is, what, if anything, should the city of Wichita do to address the city's food deserts? Is this a problem requiring a private, public, or nonprofit solution, in your opinion? Brandon will go first.
So food deserts you need a multiple approach if you want to solve the issue of food deserts. And I think that a grocery store is what most people jump to, but we learned that we can also address this with neighborhood, with utilizing some of the lots that we have to utilize neighborhood fresh farming methods so people can grow vegetables. We also need to participate more when it comes to our farmers markets. We should be strategically putting those throughout the city, particularly in food desert areas. And we should be taking advantage of technology. We're in a situation where, frankly, if grandma wanted to pick up the phone, make an order over at Dillon's, we should be able to have that dropped off at one of our community centers so that our staff at the community center can come out and put it back in groceries in grandma's trunk so you can't walk or get to the grocery store yourself. I think that there's a blended approach that we can utilize, but of course we do want to attract more grocery stores. We do want communities to be whole and have those, but also there is more to this complex issue than just grocery stores if we want to attack it. We can actually solve it using multiple lanes. And that's, as mayor, something that not only we've been looking at, but also look forward to addressing even more comprehensively.
Well, the lack of healthy food options in our community is something that I believe that the private sector should be stepping up to alleviate. So when you have private investors, entrepreneurs that are trying to take a risk in creating a business, what we need to do as a community is not only support those businesses that do come up in our community, but also as a government, we need to make sure that it is safe for them to take that risk in environments where they are, as entrepreneurs, taking that risk. So it's important for us to think about food insecurity and grocery stores as a way to help our community members have the resources that they need. But we also need to make sure that we are creating an environment that is safe for them to operate their businesses. So as mayor, I will create those opportunities by partnering and really raising the voices of those in food deserts to say investment needs to come to these areas. We are keeping this area safe and will continue to reduce crime, and that will help us create investment in those areas. Unfortunately though, over the last 4 years, crime has been increasing. So people are not apt to want to take that risk when increasing crime continues to plague our community. So we need to, again, be that environment that is safe and healthy for people to take a risk and create a business.
Thank you. We have another audience question. What program or projects, if any, are dedicated to growing the Hispanic community do you have in mind, starting with Lilywood?
Good.
Hispanic community. First and foremost, thank you for that question. And I know that Alpha Subos had a survey earlier in the primary asking us for how we are going to better engage our communities that speak Spanish. As someone who does speak some Spanish, by now mi español es muy malo, pero puedo entender más de que puedo hablar. I believe that it's important that we continue to meet people where they're at. And we should have opportunities where whenever it's available and accessible to make sure that content is translated in the most popular languages in our community. Spanish being one of those languages and another being Vietnamese in our community. So how do we better engage our Hispanic community? I'm really fortunate to have gone up to our north end during Open Streets ICT, and I highly advocate for more opportunities in our north end so people can see the vibrancy of the multicultural, diverse communities that are Hispanic, and also make sure that we continue to advocate for more opportunities, not just on our north end, but also all across our communities. Because each pocket in Wichita, neighborhoods, should be celebrated and should be safe environments for all to be able to gather.
Brandon Whipple.
All right, again, this is a good question that highlights the differences between my opponent and myself and our plans. I think that just focusing on translation and advocacy is good, but it's just basic. And we got to go beyond the basics. And I'm proud that we have, my watch, partnered with community organizations, because a lot of organizations are actually working in these communities, already doing great stuff. And what we have to do as a city is come alongside them. And one of the things that we were able to do on my watch is we're the first city in all of Kansas that actually utilized ARPA funds, American Rescue Plan funds, to create economic development opportunities, not just in Wichita, but particularly in the communities that have been left out. And we gave over $1 million for a community kitchen for one economic development program that is growing over in the north side, because we learned that a lot of the folks in our Latino communities are actually entrepreneurs. They have more entrepreneur development over in some of these cultural corners of our community than they do in other areas. So we want to come alongside that. We talked to the people who are on the ground who work in this, and they asked them what they need, and they said, well, we need a community kitchen so that people can actually learn how to cook, but also teach how to cook, and also sell products at farmers markets that they cook. And in doing that, we stepped up to the plate. We didn't just encourage it. We didn't just translate it. We actually invested in it, and we're going to continue to invest in people, particularly people in communities that haven't seen enough investment in the past.
Thank you. And so we have a question from the audience, and this will be our last question. And after that, we'll move to closing statements. The question is, how do you plan to protect reproductive rights and the providers of women's reproductive care, including abortion services that operate in Wichita? And in answering this question, the part that I will add on to it is please be specific and realistic about the powers that the city does and does not have, and where the city of Wichita fits in our large and complex system of overlapping governmental authority here in the wonderful United States of America. And I believe Mayor Whipple is next. We'll go first on this question.
All right. Let me tell you guys, from somebody who's worked in politics for a long time, the last thing you want is to call a politician when you're in a crisis. And that's what I think when it comes to medical emergencies, that is a crisis. So I voted no on the amendment, and I am unapologetically pro-choice because I don't think a politician needs to be telling women what they need to be doing with their bodies. Now, as we move forward to not correct but also engage Professor Allen on this, the state legislature actually submitted a bill this past session that took out language that prohibits cities and municipalities from stopping these type of medical centers. And if that passes, that means the fight now comes down to the local level. And I want to make sure that we have a majority on the city council who actually respects the rights of women in case it comes down and now that fight is now happening at City Hall. Because the reality is we got to make sure that moms and moms-to-be are able to get access to whatever healthcare they need. Because I don't want to ever be in a situation where my wife is right here, we have 3 kids, if we're pregnant and there's an emergency situation and there's a way to save her, but some jackass in Topeka made it so she can't get the life-saving surgery she needs, and I got to go explain to my children why mom's not coming home, I'm never going to let myself or any of you be in that situation as married.
Thank you. Lily Wu?
Let me start off by saying I'm not here to regulate abortion. This is not an issue in City Hall, nor should it be. You see, local government has its proper role, and that is not the role of local government. That discussion is at the state level, and Arkansans already put out their voice and voted on this issue. So we need to get back to some of the basics of here in local government, what people really want us to work on. When it comes to abortion, I really want to make sure that people understand it is complex. And for anyone that believes rhetoric that others have put out against me, I will tell you I'm a woman, and I am for empowering women. I want to empower young women and young men to make decisions for themselves. So I want you to understand that local government needs to stay in its lane. And their lane is to make sure that we are safe, that we have opportunities, economic ones for all, and that we have a government that's trustworthy and not so partisan to the point where we cannot get things done for all Wichitans. So we need to get back to some basics in local government, and that is why my vision has been creating a movement of people from all backgrounds, all political affiliations, all beliefs coming together on a vision that is all for Wichita.
Okay, thank you. So this has reached the end of our question period now, and we do ask that please keep your clapping, cheering, booing, and other kinds of feedback till the end of both candidates' closing statements. Also, Sophie has a number of thanks and announcements that we'll do after both candidates' closing statements. But now we will move to closing statements, each candidate getting 90 seconds. And since Brandon Whipple began with an opening statement, then Lily Wu will begin this with a closing statement.
I think it's opposite.
Okay, well,
we don't correct now.
Okay, well, I mean, I'm a college professor. I'm certainly wrong a lot. So, we'll go Whipple first, Wu second, and everybody make sure to pay attention and be respectful.
Okay, thank you everyone for hosting this debate. This has been an incredible opportunity to really, I think, see the difference between myself and my opponent on our visions for the city of Wichita. Again, Wichita is a global city. We are attracting businesses from all over the world, and we're growing. We have taken the city on autopilot, and when I go out there and I talk to people, they want to make sure that we are covering the basics, but they don't want to live in a basic city. We are at a transformational moment right now, and if we play this right, if we take advantage of our current position as the leader in economic growth and development, then we can continue to create those opportunities, not just for me, and not even just for you, but also for that next generation. And when I think about my kids, my 3 sons, I have a 6-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 10-year-old, and in 30 years, they're going to look back in this moment when they're our age, and I want them to be able to say that, yeah, we delivered for them. that we were able to make the right calls at the right time, that we invested in ourselves, and that we were able to make the bets that actually paid off. And that doesn't happen by going backwards. That doesn't happen by putting the city back on autopilot. That happens by having leadership who isn't afraid to step up and step out and do what needs to be done, even if it's divisive. And I thank you again for being here and giving us this opportunity.
I'm not a career politician, and I'm not a leader who will embarrass you. And I am not defined by labels. I'm Lily Wu. I'm an independent thinker and someone who will lead this community proudly. Why am I running? It's simple: gratitude and service. I'm grateful for the opportunities this community has shown me and my family, and I'm answering the call to serve my hometown. My working class parents, a hairstylist and a cook, had a dream of providing a better opportunity for their children in America. I'm grateful for the sacrifices that my parents made so that Carlos and I could reach our full potential through education. I'm here to serve and lead our community to a place that is better for all to live, work, and raise a family. I hope to earn your vote on November 7th to get us back to the core services of local government. And we need to ensure public safety, grow our economy, restore trust in City Hall, and build a united community. Thank you very much.
Can we get over our timekeepers, by the way?
Yeah.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you both for being here. And also thank you to Neil and Jay for moderating with me. I'd also like to give a special shout out to, again, Student Engagement, Advocacy, and Leadership, League of Women Voters, Loud Light, and Wichita Beacon for hosting this mayoral forum. And then just some announcements. Vote Early Day is October 26th, and Election Day is November 7th. And we also do have our Shoppers Vote Election Day Dash for all students here on November 7th. It'll be in the RSC from 11 to 1. Super fun. Be a part of Shoppers Vote Coalition. We also have some surveys up at the front on the seal table. We would love it if you guys could give us some feedback just so we know what we can improve in the future. Also, if you're a student here, please make sure that you have checked in at the seal table just so we can keep track of attendance. And again, thank you guys for coming. Thank you.